Umpire Mag feed, and I can't wait to go across the pond to listen to Across the Pod, fresh out of Wales. Special stuff. Cheers.
Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode.
In today's episode, in our final season preview out of 32, I was joined by Jacksonville Jaguars fan Lee White as we look ahead to the team's upcoming season. Lee discusses Trevor Lawrence after an impressive 2025 season.
I really genuinely felt he could be a top QB, and I think we're finally seeing that, and I think
I ask Lee about Liam Coen going into his second year as the team's head coach.
Are you confident that he can repeat what he did last season?
And much more as Lee predicts the team's end of season record in our win, loss or tie segment. Hope you all enjoy.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am as ever your host today, Andy Davis, and we are on team season preview 32 out of 32. We've done it. We've once again done the challenge of doing every team's season preview with a fan of those teams. So yeah, amazing achievement once again. I'm relieved it's done. Very tiring month, but at the same time it's been very enjoyable. And as you can see from the title, the team in focus today is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, before I introduce our guest, this podcast is sponsored by Fantasy Game Day app. Use code Andy5 at checkout for money back off your first paid lineup. Now, let's bring our guest in. He is back on the show today. He is a Jaguars fan from the UK, Lee White, otherwise known as Brit Jag. Lee, welcome back to the show.
Hi Andy, thanks very much for having me. It's been a fair few years now we've been doing this, so it's I might get a prediction right eventually.
Yeah, I mean, we started doing this 2022, and the very first year we had a different Jaguars fan come on, but ever since then, it's been all systems Lee White ever since, and you've been our go-to Jags fan. So yeah, it's good to have you on. And yeah, obviously you're kitted out in full Jags gear. You can see you, for those audio listeners, he's got a Jaguars t-shirt on, but also behind him is a Trevor Lawrence jersey. So you're very much dressed for the occasion.
Yeah, definitely. I got my just got it all out for the season. As obviously it's approaching, I'm getting a bit excited now. It's starting to all pick up.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be an interesting season ahead. I'm looking forward to it as a probably neutral fan with my team not really going to be doing much. So yeah, looking forward to that. But let's head into the ins and outs of the Jags off-season. So in the Jaguars off-season, they brought in the likes of Chris Rodriguez Jr., Dane Jackson, Corey Ballantyne, Jelani Tavai, Jared Bartlett. But they also saw the likes of Travis Etienne leave the team, De'Ami Brown, Tim Patrick, Emmanuel Ogbah, Mason Smith, Devin Lloyd, Greg Newsome, Andrew Wingard. And then in the draft, you actually took no first rounders. This was a trade draft pick you gave away to get Travis Hunter last year. But in the second round, you took Nate Boyer-Kircher in the second round, 56th overall. Albert Regis, Emmanuel Pregden, and Jaden Husky in the third. Wesley Williams in the fourth. Tanner Kazoil in the fifth. Josh Cameron in the sixth, as well as TJ Williams. And then in the seventh round, you took Zach Dufree and Parker Hughes. Lee, overall for you, your take on the team's off-season?
To be honest with you, it's been a bit dull. It's very, very quiet free agency. No one of real note. Can't say I'm overly excited about any of the kind of names we brought in free agency. Very much just depth players for the most part. Draft was a bit of an unusual one. Again, not having that first round pick was a bit alien to me. It was a bit weird not getting excited for the first round of the draft, and took a bit of a shine off it for me as well, because I think obviously the further down the draft you go, it's harder to do your research. I mean, I'm sure you understand it. You're aware it's harder to do the research on these players because it's a lot harder to predict who's going where. So there's a lot of kind of unknowns going in, but I suppose that could be exciting. And there's a lot to see, especially in preseason. You might get to see some new names that I'm not familiar with. In regards to the players leaving, I think the key two are fairly obvious with Etienne and Devin Lloyd, both obviously moving on to new teams. I think those will be the most impactful. Obviously, both had a good year last year, especially Devin Lloyd. But to be honest with you, previous to that, he hadn't really lived up to his billing, and it was kind of his contract year. So obviously you always expect a bit of a kind of an improvement in that situation. But I'm not overly concerned. I think we've kept the key pieces, and I think we'll continue to build on last year.
Yeah, you mentioned about I mean, when I'm planning these episodes, really I should plan them in March, but when I start planning these episodes in late May, early June, I'm looking at the ins and outs, and if something like you forget happened, like, oh yeah, that happened, and I think the Jags has been by far the least like wow. You think of a few and you look at the trades that you remember and don't remember, and some free agency additions. But yeah, the Jags was awfully just like you said, no real big names. It was just awfully, I think as the youngsters would say, awfully mid. Which I hate saying, but it just seems awfully uneventful. But yeah, I think ETN the huge loss, and that's really where I want to get onto the first talking point, because he is someone that has been a great servant for the team, but he leaves now, and in his place is a player called Bashal Tuchig. I don't know whether I'm saying that right. That could be completely butchered the way I just said his name. I don't know whether you can tell me differently, but that name is really hard.
But I believe it's Tootin. Based on what they from last year's commentary, if I remember correctly, it's Bashal Tootin. Again, I might be getting that wrong because I'd say it was a long time ago, the end of last season. But we got to see some glimpses of him backing up ETN last year, and there was some promise there. He looks a good player, pretty quick, and I think I don't know if he's going to be as big a contributor to the offense as ETN was, but I feel like, if I'm honest with you, I mean, not to steer away from the question too much, but I feel like our wide receiver core is going to take a lot of kind of attention away from the running game, and I don't think we'll lean on it as much as we have done previously.
Yeah, apologies to those listeners. I did put Tootin in, but I spelt it wrong without realizing. So it's been about a month since I wrote the episode in, and I've forgotten I'd not spelt it right. But it's big shoes to fill. He has got 5 touchdowns last year, 2 receiving touchdowns, so only 307 rushing yards. So it's not a great stat line, but I think now he's obviously got a chance to be the main RB1. You said maybe he'll have some targets taken away from him. He won't have quite as many attempts as ETN would have had last year, but it's a big ask. I will say it's a big ask, and it has been a bit like, almost, if you look at the players that have come in compared to the ones that have left, it does feel like almost they've taken one step forward last season, making the playoffs, and maybe take 2 steps back potentially. Because I think losing Cam Robinson, Devin Lloyd, and ETN, I think particularly ETN and Lloyd, that, like you said, that's a huge loss, and it's a hard one to come back from potentially this season anyway.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting because, like I say, I think obviously the unique thing with the Trevor Lawrence and the ETN partnership was obviously they'd come through Clemson together, they got drafted together, and they've obviously been in Jacksonville now for 4 years together. So there was a lot of familiarity there, and there was a very close bond. So I think that's something that it'll be interesting to see if Trevor relies on is as comfortable with a new RB1 as he was with Travis.
Yeah, it's a big year for that. But also, Trevor Lawrence had a great year. As did your head coach, Liam Coen. His second year going into a job, an amazing first year, got you into the playoffs as division winners, and then obviously you lost to the Bills. But it was a really massive improvement on the season. What's all happened previously with Doug Peterson. So it feels like the best team you guys have had, or the best season you had, I should say, since the Jacksonville season. The one where you made it all the way to the AFC Championship. But we saw the team dip a little, or massively, the next year with Doug Marrone. And is there sort of a fear for you that, we've seen head coaches before have a great first year or great second year with a team, and then they have this amazing high, and then they get like I said before, going one step forward, two steps back. Does that worry you at all about maybe Liam Coen? Now he's got an extra year of sort of coaching film on him. Are you confident that he can repeat what he did last season?
I think so. Obviously, I'm always going to say that any fan is, but I haven't seen. I saw nothing last season that would give me concern that it was going to be a step back. I don't think. Obviously, Jacoby Myers coming in midway through the year was a huge piece for Trevor, and it really allowed Coen to really unlock the offense. And we saw that towards the end of the season. There was a lot more confidence from him in Trevor, and Trevor had a lot more confidence in his receivers, because the early part of last season we had a lot of issues with drops and turnovers, and it wasn't pretty, but we really kind of pressed on and ended up the season really strong. Obviously, with Liam Coen being a Coach of the Year candidate and Trevor Lawrence being an MVP candidate, so it was a real turnaround, and I think the confidence is only going to grow from here, especially obviously having more time in Coen's system now, and the familiarity just building and building. I don't necessarily think we'll achieve the record we got last year, but I certainly don't think it's going to be a bad year.
Yeah, I mean, you are fortunate to be in the division you are. I think that allows you to potentially have a similar sort of season. But you hear Liam Coen speak, and he speaks really well. I mean, being around him for the pre-game and post-game stuff in London last year, you can tell he's a great talker, and you kind of listen to him, and you kind of, as people sitting there, not a player, you want to fight them. And I can imagine, actually being a player for the team, you want to, when he gives these speeches, whether it's pre-game or post-game, and you want to go to war with him. And I think he spoke really well, and obviously had a great first year, and he's, really helped Trevor Lawrence, have a great year. Arguably his best season of his career. And yeah, I think there was a real chance. I think obviously you were just unlucky to be against Bills, but I think if you'd gone against the Chargers, the Texans, maybe even the Patriots, you might have even gone further than just a wild card round last year.
Yeah, I think so, because even with the Bills game, it was kind of like head to head. Like, it was very back and forth. It was a close game. It's not like we got blown out. We really held our own against them. And yeah, I mean, like I say, a few minor things change, and I think we win that game. It was really kind of just millimeters, and it could have gone completely differently. So I certainly see a postseason again this year, which would be huge for the franchise. I mean, we've not achieved that since back-to-back postseason since '99, so it would be absolutely massive, and it would really kind of stamp a huge positive kind of mark on Coen's leadership and his time at the Jags.
Yeah, I think I don't recall any of those previous two head coaches having back-to-back playoff years from memory. I don't recall, and obviously Doug Peterson made it in 2022, but I don't recall you making the playoffs in 2023. Doug Moreau made the playoffs in that Jacksonville year, and obviously had a down year the following year. Is it? I could be wrong, even if I will be. I'm looking at history now. I don't recall the Jags ever having back-to-back playoff years. That could be wrong. I
think it was 99. It was the last time that it happened for us. So it's been a long time. I think that's the only time in franchise history. Obviously, only forming in 95 as well. So I'm pretty sure that's the only one in franchise history.
I'm just loading up the page. So yeah, obviously made playoffs last year. Then 2022 season was one before that. Time before that was 2017 season. Then before that, 2007 season, then 2005 season. And yeah, you actually made the playoffs 4 years in a row in the late 90s. 96 season, 97 season, 98 season, and 99 season. So yeah, I think as a franchise, they probably thought obviously had a 6-year absentee from the playoffs.
Yeah, so like I say, I mean, I think it would be absolutely huge for especially the modern day franchise to achieve something even close to that, to get back to back and kind of really solidify ourselves as a kind of a top contender in the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wide open conference. I think there's no real clear favourite, and I think you could argue probably the 3 or 4 best teams in the whole NFL are on the NFC. So I think it's a wide open AFC. Obviously, the division is quite favourable to anyone who can win that division because it's not the strongest. And then you think about the 2 best teams have got new head coaches, and there's no guarantee they're going to come back and be the same teams and have the same kind of stretch in the playoffs as they previously had, and whether they can even, replicate what they did with their previous head coaches. And Trevor Lawrence as well. I mean, he's someone that we mentioned throughout the episode so far. A guy who had his best year of his career, you would argue, last season. How confident are you in him? Obviously, there's no indication he's going to slow down. So how what's the word? Positive, and how confident are you that he's going to have another great season for the Jags?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty confident. I get a bit of stick among my Jags friends. I've always been hyping on Trevor since we drafted him and trying to kind of like stick with him and through kind of obviously bumpy times. And he didn't obviously have the easiest start to his career in the NFL. Came into a bit of a messy situation, and then the whole Doug Marrone and Press Taylor situation as Doug Peterson. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong Doug. And so it hasn't been smooth sailing, but I've kind of maintained that if we could build a solid kind of unit around him and he had kind of the correct coaching, I really genuinely felt he could be a top QB. And I think we're finally seeing that. And I think his confidence at the end part of last year, like say, he in the especially the second half of the season, I can't remember the statistics off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure he was very near the top in all, if not most, of the major categories. He was absolutely on fire, and it was playing the football of his life. And he was finally that QB that it had kind of shifted from the point where it felt previously that he didn't have the confidence. So if he needed to lead a game-winning drive, you felt nervous. Whereas the Trevor we saw towards the end of last year, it generally felt like he would put the team on his back and take us to victory. I mean, I think that's summarized brilliantly when we played the Chiefs. I think it was a Monday night football game. It was a night game, and he got stood on and he fell over, and he got back up and managed to scramble in right at I think it was like 20 seconds left on the clock or something to score. The determination in him under Coen, it just feels like he's kind of gone to another level.
Yeah, I think sometimes these quarterbacks, sometimes it just takes one little change, whether it's their receiver, whether it's their coach. It makes all the difference. I think if you can get a head coach and quarterback firing on all cylinders, then it makes a huge difference. Look at the Rams, Sean McVay and Jared Goff didn't exactly click, even though they made a Super Bowl. First Jared Goff moves away from the team, they win the whole thing. And I think there's been times in the past, I don't think you think about what happened with Doug Peterson towards the end of his time with the Eagles, with Jalen Hurts, they can get on. And I think if you can get a head coach and quarterback who are on the same page, who can work together well, I think it makes all the difference when it comes to wins and losses. I don't recall, maybe apart from Brady and Belichick, many teams winning a Super Bowl where the coach and quarterback are on the same page and get on. I don't think I've seen that too often as an NFL fan, that happening. Normally there's a relationship, there's a connection, and he'll know what plays the best for him and all that stuff. So yeah, no, it's exciting season ahead, and that is a segue to our final segment, which is win, lose or tie. So for those of you that aren't familiar with this segment of the show, every fan that comes on predicts their team's overall record by going through each game and answering with the simple answer of win, lose or tie. Now, Lee, you were on last year, and last year in real life, the Jags went 13-4. Do you by chance remember what your prediction was 12 months ago?
I feel like it might have been 11 or 12 wins.
Yeah, 11-6. So you're only 2 wins away, only two results off.
Yeah, I'll take that, because I feel like some years I've been way off. We've done this, so that's a win.
Well, moving on to week 1, it is a game at what is your final season at Everbank Stadium as you're hosting the Cleveland Browns. Lee, win, lose or tie?
I think we beat the Browns.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the more winnable games on paper for any team this year. Week 2 is your first road game of the year as you take a trip to Denver and Mile High and take on the Broncos.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one because obviously Mile High is a tough place to go. Like, there's a lot of things to take into account, but we went in there last year and we played really well and we beat them comfortably. So I'm going to go for another win there. I think we're going to come into the season high on confidence and we'll go there and win.
Well, week 3 is another team in the AFC, but this time it's the New England Patriots.
I think this is probably our first loss of the season. I think it's not. I'm not definite on this, but I'm leaning more to loss than win.
Well, week 4, you are facing a road game against the Bengals.
The Bengals, yeah, I think I fancy us against the Bengals. I really think Trevor's going to step up now and start winning kind of these big head-to-heads with other kind of QBs that he's kind of has been compared to throughout his career. And I think this is a win against Joe Burrow.
Well, then you travel to London for back-to-back games in the UK, and your first one is at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as you take on the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, so I think as much as London plays into our favour, I think that's a loss to the Eagles.
Yeah, it's a hard one to really. It's a hard one to have faith in winning because the Eagles, we know how good they can be, and they seem to be good and back like every other year. So they had the Super Bowl, then they had their down year, then the Super Bowl win, and then the following year they weren't quite as good. So I think the Eagles could be sneakily good this year. I think, they've lost to AJ Brown. That could be a thing. But then if him and Hurts aren't getting on, then it's not going to, I think, have too much of an impact if he goes. We saw that with Stephon Diggs leaving the Bills. The Eagles it's a good team to come to London. It's it's a big team. I think there's going to be a lot of Eagles fans who are going to be in attendance. I think you're more likely to see more Jags fans, as it always seems to be at Wembley. There seems to be a lot more of a Jags contingent for those games. So I think Eagles games, we're going to see a lot of Eagles fans. It might even be 70% Eagles, 20% Jags, 10% other teams. But I think if you go on the following week against Texans at Wembley, I think that could be a game where it is, due to what the Jags do with Wembley, maybe a 80%, 70% Jags, the rest of them just Texans fans and NFL fans. So I'm expecting, that next game is when it's really going to be Jag central in the crowds.
And I think that'll be a win. I think Texans, are our biggest competitor in the division, and I think especially having had the week to adjust in London and the familiarity with Wembley, I think really gives us that edge, and I think we beat the Texans.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually a good place to talk about it. I'm guessing you've seen your president, Mark Lambing, talking about the future of the Jags playing in London. So anyone who's not seen the video, he talks about how he might limit it to one game, and then the kind of the financial side of things with the new stadium, we could see less and less games involving the Jags. What are your feelings on that? Because the Jags there's a lot of UK fans who support the Jags because of the fact they play in London every year. Obviously, you all know the deal with Wembley, with Shad Khan. But is there a worry for you that maybe they are thinking of maybe moving away from London games altogether? Or do you think they'll still have at least one game a year at the UK?
It's a difficult one because obviously they're pumping a lot of money into the stadium. So they're going to want to get their use out of it. So it is a difficult one to call. But also, Shad Khan and the Jaguars have pumped a lot of money into building this fan base in the UK. And obviously, I know over the years, a lot of the kind of neutral NFL fans have obviously complained about the Jags coming back and again and again and again. But even now, like the Jaguars game at Wembley, for example, is obviously their own arranged fixture. It's not part of the international series. So it wouldn't just be, I suppose, the Jags fans losing a game in the UK. It would be NFL fans as a whole. And it's what obviously we've always got to play one team. So that'll be one fan base that's going to get to see their team that wouldn't have necessarily seen it. So I think it would be a loss to the kind of NFL fans in the UK as a whole. But I would be surprised to see them move away from it completely, just purely because, like I say, they spent so much effort and time has gone into this and money into building this fan base. And as you said, the Wembley games especially, it's a large Jaguars fan base, which just there wasn't, before they started coming to London regularly, that wasn't there. That there wasn't a Jags following to the level that it is now, and I think they've got to take that into consideration. I think it would be a shame to completely just abandon that and to kind of ignore it, because I mean, I can't talk for them. I mean, I would follow the Jags regardless, but I think there'll be parts, like you say, there are parts of that group that follow the Jags because the Jags keep coming back. If the Jags stop coming back, do they drift to another team? Do they? Yeah, I couldn't speak for them, but I'm certain there are people that probably would consider other teams. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, me and you are both lucky enough to go to these London games, and the Wembley one. When you go to the Wembley one, you just see the kind of the sea of teal in the crowd with all the flags and the jerseys, and I think it would be a massive shame to lose that. Do you think maybe they could even come back as maybe a road team, so still get to play in London once a year, but maybe they could go as a road team to keep that financial gain from playing at the new stadium, but also then getting the UK element in, playing maybe once a year rather than twice, but just as the road team, like they did in. No, were they the road team against Dolphins? No, maybe they were, but they were certainly at Tottenham. Do you think maybe they could do that? Maybe still keep the 8-9 games at home a year at the new stadium, but also then have that one game a year where they still get to go to London, but just not as the home team?
I mean, obviously there's potential in that, but obviously logistically that's quite hard to plan because you're going to have to consider a wide range of other things. You've got to make sure which team you're going to be playing against is due for due to play an international game. So I suppose potentially that could work because you're still going to get the fans that can show up, but I think logistically that might be quite hard to plan.
I have to ask what that noise was.
I just had a severe alert about wildfires in my area. So,
oh right,
yeah, it's one of those like the UK government alerts.
Oh, so. I've not had that. Interesting.
I wasn't expecting it.
No, I mean, obviously, if something happens badly, I will take that bit out. If it gets to a point where I don't know your house has been burnt down or something, I will. I'll take that bit out. But
yeah, appreciate that.
Well, you've got a week 7 bye, so week 8 you are facing another divisional game, but this time you're back in Florida and you're hosting the Colts. So
we always beat the Colts in Jacksonville. I think it's 10 years now. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember the exact. I'm pretty sure last year it was 10 years. So that they've not beat us in Jacksonville. And obviously that's a ridiculous length of time, especially given how bad we've been over that period of time. Even the season that we went 1-16, they were the one win. So we always beat the Colts in Jacksonville. So this is a win. I can't give it anything else.
Well, week 9, what looks like a primetime game, you are traveling to Maryland and taking on the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, so I think we aren't as far off from the Ravens as maybe a lot of people think we are, but I think the Ravens probably do still have the edge. I think the Ravens I really like the Ravens. I think they're a very good side, and I think we come up just short. I think that especially being on the road as well. If it had been in Jacksonville, I might have been tempted to lean the other way.
Well, it looks like that is Thursday night football. So, yeah, you have an extra few days rest, but you've got now, this is the second now of 3 back-to-back road games, and this one is against the Tennessee Titans.
So I think the Titans are probably the weakest team in our division, and I'm fairly confident we'll have enough to beat them.
Well, you got them again in week 12, but before that, you faced the New York Giants on the road.
So the Giants are a bit of a funny one. If I'm honest, I've not followed the Giants very closely all this offseason. I'm not really sure what they've done. But if I'm just going off of kind of the traditional New York Giants, I'd fancy our chances.
Okay, well, you play the Titans again, but this time at home. In fact, it's just your second home game in America since week 3. So, a long time away from Everbank, but against the Titans, win, lose, or tie.
We sweep the Titans. Yeah, we win.
Fair. Well, then week 13, a road game against the Chicago Bears.
So this is a difficult one because I feel like, I don't know if you've seen kind of Coen's comments about drawing a lot of similarities between the Jaguars and the Bears, and kind of the attention the Bears are getting and the kind of almost disrespect we're getting. I'm going to go with a win, purely because I think the Bears are a very good side, but also I think that's some like proper locker room material there. That's going to have the players fired up and being like, why is this team getting all the attention? There's a lot of similarities here. We're probably about very similar levels. And I don't know, I feel like that kind of lighting the fire might just give us the edge.
Yeah, fair. Well, week 14, you are at home once again, but this time taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So I think we beat the Steelers. The Steelers, for me, are kind of outside of our division, kind of one of our main rivals, one of the teams that I don't really like. And a lot of Jaguars fans feel the same. We obviously previously in a division with them way back when. But yeah, I've got to say we beat them because whenever we play them, we've got to beat them.
Well, then, week 16, 2 days after Christmas, you are taking a trip to Dallas and taking on the Cowboys.
Yeah, so I think going to the Cowboys just after Christmas, I think that's going to be a tough ask. I'm going to go for a loss with that one.
Okay, well, this means that week 17, your final home game, not just of the season, your final home game at the current Everbank Stadium layout. A game that we mentioned on the Commanders episode because our Commanders fan on that episode, Jarlath Eaton, is going to this game. So, interesting experience for him. But yeah, for you, final game at the current Everbank. Who wins this for you?
So I think we've got the Commanders. So again, the Commanders aren't a team I've followed very closely during the offseason, so I'm not really sure kind of additions they've made and things. But based on last season, I think we beat the Commanders.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting one because you think about what the Bills went through last year, changing stadium, your final game at the Highmark. You'll have the Titans this year, final game in Nissan. But this is the only one out of those three that's going to be basically the same stadium. From memory, I don't recall they're not moving location. They're still keeping it where it is. So it might feel a bit less emotional because you're not actually leaving the site. You just have the stadium redone. Do you think there'll be any kind of emotion behind it, or do you think it'll just be another game? We're going to do that, and we'll see you in 2 years.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a difficult one because, like you say, it's been the stadium since pretty much day one. That's been our only real home. So there's that, but like you say, it's literally going on the exact same site, and it's well in need of. I think the thing is, I think the fans are so desperate for improvements to be made. I think that will kind of overshadow any kind of sentiment, really. So I think the kind of promise of the future stadium is going to kind of overcompensate for that.
Yeah, fair. And also, you've probably been locked in with the new stadium. Excited for the new one? I'm excited for how, obviously, we've seen the renderings, we've seen what they're predicting it's going to look like. Excited for that new build?
I think so. It's obviously nice to have this kind of the back in, because I think one thing as well is surrounding the franchise for a long time, there's been talk of kind of the franchise moving and relocating, either be it to London or to somewhere else in the US. And I think this is a real kind of sign of confidence in the Jacksonville market that they're here to stay. I mean, they're not going to invest in this if they got plans to move in 5 years' time. So they're there to stay. So I think that aspect for me is the biggest aspect. But I know, like I said, I speak to obviously people that are in Jacksonville and go to games, and especially during the peak summer months, it's pretty unbearable. There's not a lot of shade, if any, when watching the game, and it's pretty tough going. So I feel like it's long overdue to kind of just improve the experience of going to watch the Jags. And I think it could help with the fan base, because obviously the Jags as well is another team that kind of gets bashed for having poor following. And I think like some of that is the facilities. It's obviously it's not the most up-to-date stadium. It's not the best facilities. And as I mentioned, in some situations, it's actually quite tough going. Watching a game in some years, literally because of the team, but others because of the heat and the humidity. So I think it could be big for the franchise, definitely.
And are they going to keep the pool? Because I couldn't find anything today about whether they were actually going to be keeping the pool, or that's going to be still a feature, or whether they were just going to maybe bin that off.
If I remember, yes. I haven't, if I'm honest, I haven't really kind of looked at anything recent from it. But if I remember when they kind of announced it all originally, I'm pretty sure there was still a pool there, yeah.
Fair enough. Well, Week 18 is your final game of the season. It's a road game, and you're taking on the Colts. Lee, for the final time this episode, win, lose, or tie?
So I always find the week kind of 17 one a real tough one to call, because obviously it depends on your situation and if you've got something to play for. And I think that plays, especially in the NFL, I think that plays a huge part in it. I'm going to go with a loss for that one, because I'm going to say that we've already secured the division and we're resting starters.
Fair enough. Well, based on your predictions, you're going to go 12-5 this season.
So that's pretty much, yeah. So I think that's pretty much where my head's at. I think, like I say, obviously 13 wins last season. Now we're playing a first place schedule, which obviously tougher games, and so I'd expect probably a slight drop off from the wins total. But yeah, I had it before we even did that. I had it in my head it was going to be kind of 11 or 12. So I'm pretty pleased with that.
And if you were to go 12-5 in the postseason, how far would you predict the team to go in the playoffs?
To be honest, if we can have another season that gets us to 12 wins, I think we could go to the Super Bowl. It would be obviously the first Super Bowl. I know, and obviously it would depend on who we face and all these things. But I really feel like the confidence is there. We're going to have Travis Hunter back for a whole season, and we had Jacoby Myers for a whole season, and really kind of building this team now, and the confidence will start to will continue to grow from last year. And I think if we can get back to back, I think we can finally reach a Super Bowl.
Wow, bold. Love it. Love that. I think as a team that, has been in London all these years, I think UK fans would generally be really behind the Jags doing well. I think, of course, unless you're a fan of the three teams in the AFC South, or maybe you're a fan of a team who's expecting to go far, if you're Bills fans, Ravens fans, Broncos fan, I think, certainly I would be rooting for the Jags. If it got to that point where they were in the AFC Championship or they were in the divisional round, certainly against the Bills, I would certainly be rooting for the Jags, because I just think all they do in the UK, both with the London games and all the stuff with the flag football and all the youth stuff, I think for their work with the UK, I think UK fans should all really be rooting for the Jags. So yeah, I'm hoping that your prediction comes true. I don't think they'd win, because I think the NFC is too strong, but I think certainly to make a Super Bowl, I think would be obviously an amazing achievement. So yeah, that would be something I would certainly be rooting for. But no, Lee, this is the end of the episode. So first of all, a huge thanks for coming on today.
I really appreciate it. It's good to speak to you again. It's kind of like I think I've said this the past couple of years. It feels like the season's really getting underway when we have our chat on here. So
yeah, absolutely. I kind of think when preseason hits and the season previews are coming towards the end, that NFL football's around the corner, and we are speaking now. There are games happening now. Game happening tonight. Games happening on the weekend. But I think we all know the real NFL football starts in early September, when that game hits between the Patriots and the Seahawks, season opener. I think that'll be special. That'll be really special. But there we are. That is the end of the season preview and the end of all 32 season previews. So just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has either liked our videos or shared them, or any posts we've done promoting the episodes. Thank you all for doing that. And we've had quite a good bit of interaction this year. So thank you all for that. And I want to thank all the guests we've had on this off-season. So thank you to Lions fan Fletch, Rams fan Sam Andrews, Mitch from 12 Talk for the Seahawks, Ravens fan Shane Harris, Browns fan Brett Kerwood, Bears fan Luke Campbell, Niners fans Ollie Hope and Paul Hope, Colts fan JP McGrath, Eagles fan Steve McGuinness, Texans fan Graham Henderson, Bengals fan Roy Joe Daniels, Commanders fan Jara Featon, Cardinals fan Ollie Kent, Buccaneers fan Murph, Dolphins fans Sam Moores and Mark Bradley, Chargers fan Henry Pope, Raiders fan Levi Dombro, Broncos fan Tony Folk, Jets fan Ant Cook, Panthers fan Keg, Cowboys fan Paul, Packers fan Adam Martin, Saints fan Daniel Harper, Giants fan Tom Morton, Falcons fan Rob Monk, Patriots fan Shane Harris, Vikings fan John McDonald, Chiefs fan Brad Simcox, Bills fan Charlie Nelson, Steelers fans Freddie Harper Davis and Freddie Hall, and of course, Jags fan Lee White Lee. Thank you again, and thank you all for listening. This has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast, team season preview 32 out of 32, with our guest today in Jags fan Lee White. And we'll see you guys for our next episode, which will be our season predictions. We'll see you then.